Well, a very good afternoon, everybody. My talk doesn't have fancy videos like what we really saw, and the last one was actually really admirable. Despite the fact of so many complications, it really went smooth in the end. Um, well, it's pretty much like that when we are dealing with angle recession glaucoma. Things look good at times, and sometimes angle recession really gets out of hand, and angle recession glaucoma gives us a lot of trouble. So, when there is trauma and there is rise of pressure, at that point we don't have glaucomatous optic neuropathy. So, it is wise to call it post traumatic ocular hypertension at that point of time. Now, it can develop into a full blown glaucoma in a month, or maybe in 10 years, or maybe in 20 years. So, once you have a trauma and once you see gonioscopically that there is an angle recession, there is no going back. You have to keep seeing your patient initially monthly, then, when all is fine, 3 monthly, and eventually every year at least to pick up early changes of glaucoma. So it's basically a secondary open angle glaucoma. It's associated with ocular trauma, and what happens, as we can see in this picture, is that there is an acute anterior-posterior compression. So there is a blow, the anterior-posterior diameter, it gets compressed, and all these fluids are displaced equatorially. There is forceful redistribution of these compressible ocular fluids, which ultimately leads to damage to the iris in the form of iris dialysis, angle recession, cyclodialysis, or trabecular meshwork tears. Now, angle recession essentially is nothing but tear between circular and longitudinal ciliary body muscles, and 60% of eyes have non-penetrating ocular injury. So it's the blunt trauma which will cause more damage than the penetrating trauma. And almost 90% of patients who develop angle recession have had post-traumatic hyphema. So we just saw how traumatic hyphema requires intervention, be it surgical or be it in the form of steroids, because ultimately traumatic hyphema leads to trabeculitis, and if that trabeculitis is not taken care of, it compromises the trabecular meshwork beams and it affects your outflow pathway. Angle recession is nothing but signifying trabecular meshwork damage. If you treat trabecular meshwork damage well in time, you can get out of it. If you don't, you can end up into a full-blown angle recession glaucoma. Now, some people have thought that probably there is a hyaline membrane over the angle which reflects a posterior extension of Descemet membranes. You see here that there is a patchy recession of the angle. Likewise, in this place also, you can see a very broad ciliary body band and retro displacement of the iris. This concept, which has come recently, is very valid, and it tells you why certain people are more predisposed to getting angle recession as compared to others. Now, we know that there is a tear between longitudinal fibers and the circular fibers. The longitudinal fibers, they contract anteroposteriorly, while the circular fibers, they contract inwards towards the lens equator. Now, in between, there is a buffer zone of oblique fibers, and this zone has no distinct function of its own, but it somehow tries to buffer between the opposing perpendicular forces that are there between the circular fibers and the longitudinal fibers. Now, if this zone of deficiency is broad, then these patients tend to develop angle recession after trauma. Now, the speed of longitudinal fiber contraction is also way more than the circular fiber contraction. So, whenever there is a trauma, one is contracting too fast, the other is contracting at a relatively slower pace, and sometimes this zone of deficiency is not able to bear up the trauma and it gives way. So gonioscopy is very, very important to pick up the diagnosis. Now, we cannot do a gonioscopy immediately after trauma. So I take about 2 weeks to do a good gonioscopy. By that time, the iritis is resolved and the patient is pain-free, and you can indent if needed. Whenever we do a gonioscopy of the eye that has gotten the trauma, it's important to do gonioscopy of the fellow eye. Sometimes people have broader ciliary body bands on their own. So it needs to be unilateral to call it angle recession. Otherwise, the individual can have a broad ciliary body band. So there will be patchy signs of patchy pigmentation and recession of the angle, and where you can see patchy broad bands of the ciliary body band. Likewise here inferiorly, and even in the nasal and the temporal angles. Now, this individual might have had a very severe trauma because all the four quadrants are involved. So histologically, it also we see that the longitudinal muscle stays attached to the scleral spur, while it's the circular muscle which gets detached, and there is a retroplacement of the iris. UBM and anterior segmentosity, they confirm the findings, but it's a good idea when in doubt regarding angle recession to do an anterior segmentosity, and you will see a very wide ciliary body band and a retroplaced iris. Although recession is common after blunt trauma, only 6 to 7% eventually go on to develop glaucoma. And always consider angle recession when you are encountering unilateral glaucoma and the patient doesn't even give you a history of trauma. So this individual I saw a few years back had very high pressures. He came to me with 50 pressures and severe pain and headache. 48-year-old gentleman with unilateral glaucoma. I tried to dig out the history and he gave a vague recollection of trauma when he was playing with a child and he got hit with the child's hand. The telltale signs were sphincter tears. There was a localized mydriasis and nearly 360 degrees of recession to explain the unilateral glaucoma in this patient. It's important to recognize the risk factors for angle recession glaucoma so you can pick these cases in time. Young males, unfortunately, are more prone to develop ARG. If there is severe trauma, the likelihood of angle recession glaucoma is way more. Trauma may just be an initiating factor. So if one eye after trauma has developed an angle recession glaucoma, the second eye also has the risk of developing glaucoma. Not angle recession, but somehow the fellow eyes have been found to have more likelihood of developing a glaucoma. So always do gonioscopy of the other eye. Always check pressures of the other eye at each visit. Don't just give it a step-eye treatment. Angle recession of more than 240 degrees with an increased trabecular meshwork pigmentation and elevated intraocular pressure at presentation, along with hyphema, are other risk factors. You need to look at the obvious signs. Hyphema, the rebleed is more worrisome, and that is why very imperative that you don't do a gonioscopy right in the beginning after trauma, because that can result in rebleed. Rebleeds usually have poorer prognosis and they have increased risk of pressure rise and corneal blood staining. The washes ring on the lens also gives you a telltale sign of a past glaucoma. So if there is an external force, there is an angiorhexis and there is a rebleed. So doing indentation with the gonioscope can add more trauma initially. These patients, as I've already mentioned, require lifelong medical treatment. They are refractory to medical treatment once you have a full-blown established acute angle recession glaucoma. SLT and trabeculectomy without antimetabolites have been found to have a relatively poorer outcome. And the failure is because of increased fibroblast proliferation in younger patients and changes in aqueous humor with more interleukins in the aqueous humor post-trauma. These patients are also more prone to bleb-related infections. The antimetabolites, however, decrease the rate of failure, but you really need to watch out these patients. The success of glaucoma drainage devices initially when the results were coming up with Molteno implants way back in 1993 was just 56% at 1 year. But the recent studies have shown that the success is really good with implants, so 90% at 2.5 years. So probably you can consider putting an implant earlier and just giving a chance to implants over trabeculectomy. Other surgical options that have been recently tried include the micropulse diode laser, the gonioscopy-assisted transluminal trabeculectomy, canaloplasty, and carefully monitoring the frequency of duration of post-operative topical steroids. Now, mind you, these are young males, and if you put post-operative steroids for very long, these patients can also be steroid responders. So watching out for steroids is really, really important in these patients. What not to do is to avoid cholinergics at all, by all means, because they may paradoxically increase the intraocular pressure by impairing uvascular outflow. And these miotics, pilocarpine, can increase vascular permeability and lead to formation of fibrin clot in anterior chamber, resulting in posterior synechia formation. So to conclude, high IOP is fairly common after trauma. Prompt recognition and management and following up your patient repeatedly is very, very important to prevent development of glaucomatous optic neuropathy. And always think of old trauma in cases of unexplained unilateral glaucoma. And patients with angle recession should be on a yearly lifelong follow-up for IOP recording in both eyes despite having unilateral disease. Thank you very much for patient listening.